Okay, this video here I'm recording, this presentation, is to pull together everything we've been doing all this semester, just in case there's any blanks, missing links, something that's fit in. We've got 2 weeks to go, final 2 weeks. I've got some slides to show you. I've given you some handouts. Anyway, this slide set here is to kind of pull everything here into perspective. So let me go through that for you a little bit here, okay? Snapshot this week. This is about the last 2 weeks, but we're in the third from the end. And so as you finish up, you want to make sure that you resubmit your production workflow slides, and you're now working on your social media slides. That's two assignments dealing with slides, because I want to make sure that you can put together these slides in a fashion that they look decent, so that when you put together your slides for the client presentation, they'll be a lot more professional than the first attempts many of you have, presented. And then also this week you need to portion up the client presentation, and that's what I want to go over, what the client presentation is and how you're going to do that. Because while you're working on this social media due next week, you need to definitely be thinking about the final client presentation, and don't wait till after the social media is done before you start thinking about that. And the best way of doing that is to just make sure your team comes up with an understanding as to who's doing what part of that presentation. So here it is. Now after the break, after Thanksgiving, next week the social media integration is due. And then we're going to have a quiz as well. The quiz is going to be this week, but I put it off for a week. Some people think that's better, some people doesn't think is as good. And then the final week, the week after that one, is when you are submitting your client presentation slides, the portion of the presentation you're doing, and submitting submitting your design piece, the one that you wrote the creative brief on, and create mock-ups, and then you're taking the final exam, okay? The team next week should be working on the branding guide. I'll explain how to do that. It's just a single small document. And you're going to finalize your plans for the client presentation. And then the week after that, you're giving the client presentation, okay? And this slide here is showing that the branding guide, your individual client presentation slides, and the mock-ups, they're all going to be brought together for that live client presentation. And so I'm just trying to give you an idea behind that one. Normally this is where we would go over the critiques for your production workflow. I mentioned this week you're going to be doing, resubmitting them. If you did not get enough feedback from what I gave you in the critique, I'd be glad to go over it. The main points that I want you to pick up on creating these slides is that you're demonstrating enough of design principles, messaging principles. Remember, it's a single slide, one message, one point, an appropriate image to get their attention that ties in. We talked all about using the correct selection of image and how to crop it and how to use it. Few words. Focus, focus, focus. And you're practicing that slide after slide after slide. You keep running that play, like the football coach said, until you get it right. Okay? And that's the idea where it becomes second nature to you. Let's talk about the details, though, in this upcoming social media integration and how this works. You're going to be recommending for your client a list of social media that you feel the client could benefit from. That starts with your team forming a list. Okay? 4 members on your team, you got to come up with these 4 social media. And this can be, a blog, could be, Twitter, microblogging. It could be something to do with sharing videos, sharing photos, social bookmarking, like something like Pinterest. Whatever you want to choose, you're going to do a report on that, outline like you did with the production workflow, and produce a little slide show. The client is somebody, the audience is somebody who doesn't know anything about your topic, okay? And that is your client. And how this social media is going to work toward helping your client. That's what it's about. Everyone's doing their own. Now as a team, you are going to take this list and assign out to the members an individual project, you know. So let's say that one of you said we were going to do LinkedIn, okay? That's on the list for your client, and that's the one that you chose or you were assigned by your team. So you're going to do a slide presentation on LinkedIn. You know, what is it? How do you set it up? How much time or effort does it take? How can it benefit a business? How can it benefit your specific client? And you might recommend some of the kind of things that, messages that we could put on there. Okay? Okay, let me give you an example here. Well, I don't have my slides here to show you an example that one team did for ABC Nevada chapter. That was one of the clients we did. And they talked about how to set it up and the kind of things and the benefits of it for that particular business. So this week you start working on the slides for your social media. You at this point should already have the outline. You should know what you're doing. And then you should talk about who's going to do what on the final presentation. You might have someone do all the social media for the client in the presentation. You might have everyone on the team do their own. You might decide only one of those social media is going to end up as a recommendation for the client, and that person can give that. You decide, make the assignments. So let's talk about after the break, okay? You're not going to do anything during the break, I'm assuming. Eating and having fun with friends and family, I hope. And really, being thankful for what the good things in your life, like
you had the opportunity to take this class. That is a lot to be grateful for, right? All the things you learn in this class.
Next week, the slides for your social media are due. Hopefully the feedback you got, and if you did some resubmission on the assignment 5, will be beneficial in how you put together these slides, okay? These are all the things that we've done in the last half of the semester that all end up with the client presentation. Okay? First, teamwork. And the reason we did the teamwork was to develop some social skills. That's why I threw you together so that you could learn to develop, creative thinking and just thinking. I'd just be glad if you think, okay? Especially creative thinking. Problem solving and communication and organizing your ideas and all stuff like that. You started with the situation analysis where you did your research and you came to an understanding about the client. And it was the first way to practice and getting and organizing. And as I said, the more thorough your situation analysis was, the easier it's going to be for you to create the campaign plan, the final project. Okay? If it's deficient in that, you're going to notice you're going to be deficient now. Creative brief. You did that as an individual to specify and concentrate on just one design piece. It was targeted to the designer. That's who the audience was. Okay? Not the client, not your fellow students, not me, not the instructor. And you had all the information in there to create a single design piece. Now, you're ending up producing this design piece, so if you already know all about this, then write it down. If you didn't know about it, you're going to have to know about it when you put it together, so there may be some catch-up there. And then we have the slide sets. There's 2 assignments here to help you practice, layout principles and how to use type. And you finished up the production workflow. Next week we're doing the social media integration. The production workflow was kind of a dry run on how to do this. The social media, you are going to end up possibly using this as part of your final presentation. Now this class presentation is the height of the whole class. It's the representing all things coming together and what you've actually learned about this. But before you present the client presentation, let's separate this here, and there's something that should go in between there. Not another assignment, okay, but an activity that will help you pull all of this together. And it's called the campaign plan outline. You probably have heard me say this before. It's just another name for the outline for your final client presentation. Because the client presentation is basically you're explaining the plans you've come up with for the client, a campaign of sorts. Now, a campaign could be a political campaign, an advertising campaign, could be a military campaign. It's a series of planned events that all work together to culminate in a single objective, right? Whether that be as an advertising campaign to sell more products, if it's a political campaign to elect the client, a military campaign to win the war. Okay, in this case, you're putting together this whole plan, all these suggestions you have, and when you present it to the client, it's going to be basically about this plan. And it is a result of bringing together the situation analysis and the creative briefs, the things you've learned. If you did a really thorough job on those, you just merge them and you flesh out a little detail. Some of the details that you flesh out might be including branding, a description of the branding for the client. What is the client's identity? What about messaging? Recommendations you have in the form of, design pieces or what social media they should use. And then the budget, the cost it's going to be. All of these should be put into this campaign plan. Now in week 13, I presented a campaign plan outline, a little different format, a little bit of different information. Here's an example of one that I emailed to everybody. Not only in this outline form, but it's also in the form of a, in fact, why don't you zoom here on this one? Show me the form here of a, we call it an image map, okay? An idea map, okay? Showing the relationship of all the concepts and how they fit together. And then, so you can use this as a basis as what's all going to go in your campaign plan. Now, be honest. As you think about this, don't come up with ideas that sound good. Are they going to be realistic? Are they really going to work? Are they believable? Can you support them? Be honest with yourself. And be honest with the client, and what you propose will be acceptable. Okay? Now, the deliverables that you're working toward for the client. There's some team deliverables, and then there's some individual deliverables. And let's kind of go over them. Here's a whole list of them. Okay? Basically, your team is submitting the entire slide set and the script. That's basically what you're saying and what you're showing the client. You're going to be able to give that complete presentation slides with the notes you've got as a file to the client when you're done. You're going to come the last day when you make the presentation, you're going to load that file on the computer, and it'll be ready to go so that everyone can do their portion of those slides. That means that if there's 4 members on the team, each member of the team puts together 1/4 of those slides. And will present 1/4 of those slides. And will be graded on 1/4 of those slides. Okay? If a team member doesn't show up, it's not going to affect your grade. So we'll talk about, you can take that outline I gave you and divide it up and say, okay, I'll do this part, I'll do this part, and you decide how you're going to present it, okay? I will be video recording this, so you can promise to the client that they'll receive a link to where the video is so they can see it again if they want to. So there's a tangible printout of your notes with the slides and the script that the client's going to get. There's a video the client's going to get. In fact, when you load your slide set on the computer, you're going to give me a hard copy. I can go to Notes page here. And this shows me, here's my slide, and then here's my notes. These notes are taken from the Notes section in your PowerPoint. So if you're in your PowerPoint, right down here, this area right here, this is your script. This is what you're going to say when this slide is up. Right? This slide is a support for what you want to say. So, pan over here to the screen. I'm sitting here doing a presentation, and I'm telling you about what this is going to be. Okay? You don't want to read the slide, you don't need to look at the slides because you can look right over here and see the slides on the monitor. You can look over here, it tells you what slide it is. Slides right back here. And then you talk about it. Rehearse what you would say about it. Put that in your note. So they're right down here. And you go to print this as notes. You can come here and say, I want to print this layout 4 sheets per page. I'm going to make a PDF of this. See if I can do that. Yeah, I can. So you'll see what it looks like when it prints out. There it is. My notes will be right here. There's 9 slides, and there they are. So you could tell your client, don't worry about taking notes, because you're going to get the complete presentation and a video to it at the end, so they can concentrate on what you want to say. I'm going to get the printout of these notes at the beginning, so as I can take notes and watch what you're presenting, and because I have to grade this. But you don't want to give that to the client because it's distracting. You don't want to give anything to the client. You want the client just to pay attention to what you want to say. And the slides are supporting you. Since I've got this branding guide up here, let me kind of go through it. This will be likened to what you see on the monitor when you're doing the presentation. And actually what appears on the screen will be just this. Okay? Your presentation should include identity. There's some other terms here. Branding, positioning, core messaging that you should understand. Now, let me talk about this. This is a definition of branding right here. I know you're tempted to look at the slides here on the right. Just look at the one on the left here. The first part of this definition talks about elements that constitute the identity. How do people identify you? By your name and what your face looks like. You know, if you always did goth, then by your makeup and your straight dark hair and black clothes, that kind of seems to be, you know, the way people identify you. Although that's getting a little bit more into branding. Representations of the client's products or service line, those things, the colors, all of that deals with, these are the elements of identity. You need to clarify them. Colors should be defined specifically by formulas. Second part of this definition deals with the messaging. Everything you're dealing with has something to do with goods and services, which is what business is about. All of your graphic communications that you do in your career, few exceptions, are paid for by some business activity dealing with the sale, the manufacturing, the sale and the delivery of goods and services. That's what markets are about, that's what marketing is about, and that's what graphic design is about for the most part. Messaging is the core messaging, the elevator speech, no? And any kind of boilerplate copy. These should be included in your presentation to the client. Boilerplate copy is that copy that is used again and again and again and again. It might be just contact information, name, phone numbers, addresses, emails, what social media you can find them on. It could be a mission statement. It could be a product line description. It could be slogans. It could be selling points for a particular product. That's what boilerplate is. You need to identify that and include that. And the last part of this definition deals with positioning. Not much emphasis was made on positioning, but positioning is about telling your story and what makes you different and getting people to think about you whenever they think about your brand or your identity. Okay? Position is referred to in your brain. There's only one place for a brand name when you talk about a certain product or service. Okay? Cola, Coca-Cola. Okay? Fast food, McDonald's. Okay? Shoes, Nike. Yeah, if you were pressed, you could list a lot of brands about shoes or computers or that, but you think of that because they position themselves. And that's because they're unique in that sense. And your client needs to come up with that USP, that unique selling point. What benefit does your client offer that others don't? What makes them different? How can they be positioned above us? Those definitely need to be in your client presentation somehow. In the outline I gave you, that is listed there. Okay, so let me get back here to client work. Okay, so we talked about this campaign plan and how you bring all these elements together here. This branding guide is what your team is going to be producing. I went through what branding was and all these elements. They should be put on a single sheet, maybe 2-3 sheets of paper, describing what are the colors that should be consistently used as part of the identity and branding. Define those colors. On the web, what's the formula? In print, what's the formula? If you're using a spot color, what spot color is it? What typefaces are you using consistently in your messaging? What's the name of that font? Where can you find that font? Is it free? Do you have to buy it? Okay? Don't leave anything unturned. And so you want to bring this together. How do you do that? You might want to divide up the branding guide, or you might want to have a team talk about it, somebody take notes, somebody puts it together. As a result of that, maybe they present a few less slides in the presentation. Balance the work, that's up to you. But you need a branding guide, a second deliverable you give the client. Wow, something free I get to take home. I can use this. Boy Scouts of America has a branding guide that's 35 pages long. Community College has one that's a couple dozen. And that's because they want to give a lot of details so that if a secretary is doing something for the organization, they follow these standards and you don't end up creating something that's different than the brand they're trying to bring, their build. Okay, so you're also going to give the client design pieces. The layouts that you're going to be producing, minimal, right? You're going to need those for your slides. You want to say, hey, we're going to show you what your identity package looks like. Here's the business card, envelope, and letterhead that we put together, and you got a slide for that. You want to show more details on the business card? Don't give the business card to the client. Show a slide zoomed in on the business card. Give the mock-ups later at the very end of the presentation. So that's just layouts on the screen. Print them out, hard copies. It's nice to give the hard copies so the client can take them with her. Now for extra credit, and I've changed it to extra credit here, if you put together your printouts and make them on the right kind of paper with the right texture and the right thickness, the right color, you fold it, you cut it, you trim it, whatever needs to be done to make it look like a prototype, like it just came off the press, and here's what it's going to look like and what it feels like and how it works. That's a mock-up. You'll get extra credit for that. Minimally, you need a printout and some slides showing what it is. So you've got to put that together yourself. I gave some milestones here as a way to kind of gauge where you should be on each one of them. You're not submitting on each one of these dates, and I'm not checking up on you. I said, look, by December 7th, you need the design piece, mock-ups all done and ready to give the client. If you're not going to do the mock-up, and I deem it something that should be done, I'll do the mock-up for you. I'll get the extra credit. Like I really need that, huh? But I want to produce something nice for the client so she has something to go home with, okay? And so if you have to have that by the 7th, by the way, that's Pearl Harbor Day. That's when the bombs drop. Let's be ready, okay? So if you work your way back, notice there's feedback here. Feedback. Whoops. Feedback. Feedback. The more you get them to me so I can give you some feedback on that. We only meet once a week, so that means, come in and talk about it, scan it, send it to me, get some feedback from somebody else. The more feedback you get at various stages like this, the better product you're going to produce. You're not designers. Well, some of you are. But if you just walked off the street or right out of high school and this is the first GRC class you took, you don't know much about design. You learned a little bit as you're going along, and you can learn a lot more here if you get the feedback. I'm trying to give you the feedback on your slides. You're going to be doing things more complicated than simple slides when you do your design piece, so get the feedback, and you might want to follow that, okay? And these design pieces, I think I've been through these with you before. This might be a slide that you would show. Okay, here's an identity package we did for you. You can't read it, you can't see a lot. All it shows you is the branding and how the colors and how everything works together and how coordinated it is. Create another slide that zooms into this card here if you feel you need to show that to the client. Okay? You want to show like what it would look like on this screen. So a website, when you print it out, that's your mock-up. Now for a website mock-up, you need to mount it on a card stock, something heavier, trim it down so it's presented and it looks a little bit better. Follow?
It can't be like a mock website.
Well, no, you don't have to build a website. You just have to build the layout of what it would look like. It doesn't have to work. It doesn't have to be interactive. That's what it looks like. Here's where the navigation is. Here's what the front picture is. Okay? And so a mock-up of that is just what it looks like. Okay? If you're doing a social media banner, I would do it. I would take a picture of their website, their social media, or make a mock-up of it, put their banner on there, and take a picture of that. So make it look like it's what it would look like up on the screen. That's all you have to do. If you were doing a billboard, you wouldn't bring in a billboard. You would have a picture of a landscape where there's a billboard in the environment with your billboard there. So they see what it looks like in the context of where it's being presented from a car traveling on a road next to it. So that's what you want to do here on the non-print products, okay? A flyer, you'd print them on both sides. If you bleed it, you make it trimmed. That's what a mock-up is. Okay. Any questions about that stuff? This is late in getting posted. It's posted now. I gave handouts today, hard copies, so make sure you had it. These are the instructions for your client presentation. Here are some examples of style guides. Have you seen any one of these? Here's one for the community college. I don't know if you've ever heard of that place. 24 pages, okay? Okay, not only does it show you the logo, but it shows you the configurations of the logo, okay? Here's a configuration, normally the horizontal and the vertical configuration. Here's the configuration using 2 spot colors. There's the names of the spot colors. Here's how you make the spot color in CMYK. Here's how you make it in RGB, okay? Here's the name of the logos. You may not have the logo created, but you should if you're using a logo and you're showing them. Here's what the logo looks like if it's just in blues. Here's what it looks like if it's in black and white. Here's what it looks like if you reverse it. They're not leaving much to chance. What are they basically saying? There's lots of ways you can show the logo, but they have to stay with these standards. These are the fonts you use. Here's how much space you need to leave around the logo so it's not too crowded. See the height here of this? That's at the boundary. And they're telling you, what are they telling you? Here. Don't do this, and don't do that, and don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. They're saying, basically, don't screw with the logo. You can make it horizontal or vertical. You could change the reverse and all that, like I showed you. Other than that, don't screw with the logo. Your job as a secretary or whoever's putting this together is not to recreate the logo and be creative. We're keeping the same items, each, for our branding. All these elements need to be the same. You might want to do that in yours. And if you're going to put something against background, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and this. Basically, good design says, look, it's got to be legible against the background. That's all. But you're giving examples. Why do they do it here in the CSN? Because you have secretaries putting stuff together. They don't know how to do this, and so they have to be given some standards. They tell you where to place stuff in the letterhead, on the business card. Pretty dang specific. Yeah, it's because they're serious about maintaining a certain image. And that's what you're wanting to show your client. So you have the final project, and it gives you instructions in here and a basic outline. This may not be as comprehensive as the one that I showed you, but you know, it's a basic outline. I just gave you one with a mind map on it. It's a little bit different format. In week 13, when we first talked about this, I gave you a different format, not to confuse you, but showing you different kinds of outlines. You decide what you're covering, how thorough you can be. Why do you have to be so planning about this? You have 20 minutes. As a team, you have 20 minutes. You could take 30. But if 4 teams are presenting and we're trying to do it in 2 hours, that's half an hour per team, and there's transition time. So 20 minutes as a team. Oh, and I was worried I would have to give a 20-minute presentation myself. No, on average, everyone's doing 5 to 7 minutes. Oh, well, that doesn't sound so bad. It is so easy to fill up 5 minutes. You could fill up 5 minutes and say nothing. And you got a lot to say. So your outline and your slides are going to keep you on task. And you know what? Your audience wants you to do that because they don't want to sit here 3 hours to hear what you have to say. Boil it down. Whittle it down. Chip off what you don't need. Focus, focus, focus. You've been practicing that on slides, one idea at a time. Do that with the overall campaign. Decide who's going to say what. And next week we'll do some practicing with the clicker and how you can go through the, the motions so you feel comfortable with the technology. You should be comfortable with what you're saying in your slides, and then you're just there to talk to the client. Now, I've also emailed you, there are 3 examples of a campaign plan that done from previous semesters. SHINE, which stands for Students Helping Integrate Non-Traditional Education. They run this Tech Know-How Lab, which is right over here, next door. We took them on as a client one time. They recommended they give them a new name. One team says, yeah, give your whole program a new name. Others said, change your logo. Don't be afraid to recommend things that's different from what the client, but whatever you recommend, it ought to be helpful. It ought to be purposeful. So you can look at these examples. They're all of a different approach. Some of them are pretty good. This one here, where they recommended you, let's see, over background, the organization, how it works, the goals, program goals, the scope, strategy, the messaging, tactics, problem solutions, staffing, location, budget, images, the kind of images that would be used. Whether you use these specific images, these are the kind of images we're going to use in our promotions. Right? There are the logos. Here's the color palette and the descriptions on it. See, part of this is some of the information that would be in the style guide and this campaign plan. So how you organize it and how you present it to the client, you have some flexibility. But the operative word is thoroughness. And the other operative word is succinct. So how do you be succinct, short and to the point, and be thorough? The third operative word, focus. Just don't talk about anything that's not necessary. When you get up there and describe the design pieces that you're recommending for the client, don't critique your piece. Don't tell me why you did what you did. Don't tell me how hard you struggled to put this together. We did a lot of research. Who cares? Maybe the client does later, but that's not important. Show them. If it's a different logo or different colors, you might want to then say, these colors represent this, and we feel this is what your company is, and it ties back to your messaging. I get it. It doesn't have anything to do with we chose these colors because Kathy said this is her favorite colors. Who cares what the owner likes? What is appropriate for the audience? So you can describe that, but you got 5 minutes. Okay? So, any questions? So, how much did I repeat from what I've done before, said before? Most of it? And yet I still get some students like, okay, I'm not sure what to do at this point. So I want to make sure you understand. What you need to do is to make sure that those assignments by your team are done. If they're not already done, they're done. And you know right now who's doing what 2 weeks from now.